Hello, beautiful souls. I am Valeria Maritza, your host here at Healing Through You. I am an infinite being of light, and so are you. Today, my guest is Laurie Santos. She is an EFT tapping practitioner, but she also brings in her intuition and her channeling to it. So, this is a different take that I had not heard about. Not that I wasn't aware of it, but like I hadn't heard from an actual practitioner talking about this. So I'm so excited to bring her to you so that you can learn more about it, get excited. I am so excited. So, welcome, Laurie. How are you today?
Hi, Valeria. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here also. I'm really doing great. I'm really jazzed to dive into our topic.
Yes, I love your energy. I just was really looking forward to recording this interview for the audience. So let's just get started. Tell us a little bit about how your life was before you started going down the healing or the awareness or the awakening rabbit hole.
Oh, I love that question because I was a federal probation officer.
Wow.
So, yeah, I worked in criminal justice. And before I was a federal probation officer, I was a county probation officer back home in California, where I'm originally from. And after working for the county for a few years, I thought, well, hey, let's go to the federal government and essentially do the same thing, but at the federal level. So I have my master's in justice. My bachelor's is in anthropology, and it really kind of felt like this beautiful way that I could bridge both of my degrees together under one umbrella by working in this sort of subculture, if you will, of
Mhm.
crime. And I did that in total then almost 10 years.
Wow.
And yeah, and it was really interesting. Why I left was because I felt that I was in a toxic environment. And it wasn't actually because I was working with offenders or people, who had been convicted. It was actually more the management. It was really hierarchical. Yeah.
That's
And
always
it
a big
is,
thing.
it is, isn't
Yeah.
it? Now we're talking, when I left, it was 2006 when I left officially. But throughout that whole period of working in this environment, I just really noticed that the management that I was working under was really breeding suspicion among the officers and distrust among the officers. And we're already working in an unsafe environment. And I just really felt uncomfortable. It got to the point where I felt actually endangered by working in that work because of the people that I would go out with. Did my partner trust me? Could I trust my partner? I felt
Wow.
like this animosity that was being cultivated actually in the environment that I was working in. So in around, let's see, to the year 2000, I had a subscription to Shape magazine. And this one day I sat down with this pile of magazines and one of them just opened up to the middle. And to me, this, of course, is that divine intervention. And you're
Uh-huh.
supposed to see this because I had this pile of magazines for about a year. And all I had done was just kind of thumb through them, take out the samples, smell the perfumes, but not really read any articles, I confess. Well, this one day when this one magazine opens, it opened up to an article called "What is Life Coaching?" And this was the year 2000, and I had no idea what that was. I had never heard of it. Of course, this is really the beginnings of life coaching,
It
right?
was, yeah.
I devoured that article. I found that article essentially saved me. It was the thing I was asking for, the thing I was calling for. And it literally told the reader step by step what life coaching was, how it got started, who founded it. And at the end of the article, it gave several different international coach federation schools that had been accredited and were approved by the ICF. And so I enrolled in my first coaching school. And it was about 6 months, and that was on a bridge line back then when we had bridge lines, and it was all done by telephone.
Oh my
And
gosh.
yeah, and so we had 14 people on the phone with one coach, one master coach instructor, and it just wasn't enough. I mean, it was great, but it wasn't enough. I could feel I was hungry to learn more, and how could I become an even better coach, if you will. So I enrolled in my second coaching school. And that was a 2-year program, and it was in person. It was all experiential. And I literally had my first moments of enlightenment. And I didn't even know what that was then. And it really rocked my world and blew my mind.
Were you
And
still working while you were going
I
through
was.
this?
I was
Okay.
still a federal probation officer while I was going through the coaching schools and being tasked with starting our own coaching practice.
Wow.
Yeah, we were tasked with asking the other students who were also coaches in training, hey, do you have a family member or a friend that I can do a sample session with? And vice versa. And so that's how we all started building our coaching practices. And so I would say around about 3.5 years in to working full time, but running a part-time coaching practice out of my house, I started to get the sensation I couldn't do both anymore. And I didn't want to do both anymore. I started to feel like a fraud because all of these people that were working with me, hiring me as a coach, were quitting their jobs. They were having tremendous success and experiencing wonderful radical results, but I was still working my full-time job, and I was like, how can this be? This doesn't feel congruent. So in 2006, I resigned from being a federal probation officer and went full-time with my coaching career. And it was, I think, it was 2009 when EFT came into my world. And part of that was me studying other modalities in order to have more tools in my toolbox as a coach. But also a lot of it was just my own healing journey. And EFT was a huge, huge part of my healing journey. I had gone through a broken engagement, and EFT, working with these EFT therapists, was the modality that got me over the heartbreak of that.
Mm.
And it was so I used EFT just for myself. At that point in time, I did not train as an EFT therapist. And in 2014, I had what I call a near death experience in Bali. I went to a retreat to do a surfing retreat, and I got bonked hard on the head by my surfboard and pulled under in an undertow.
Wow.
And yeah, and I was drowning. And that really changed my world. I had always felt intuitive, but that moment, I really feel like even more of the clairs started to drop
Did
in.
you feel that did you see your body like from outside? Was it an actual?
Oh, so that's why I call it a near death
Uh-huh.
experience, because I didn't cross over, but what I did feel was the snap. As you may have heard from other guests with their near death experience, where it's like that soul cord snaps, or it pops back in when you do pop back into the body.
Yeah.
So what happened for me was this awareness of, at first, oh my gosh, I'm pulled under this undertow and I'm blacking out from the hit on the head. And I started to see the natural light, the sunlight, get smaller and smaller to the point where it was like a pin. And I went into this state of, wow, this is beautiful. I'm not scared. So the initial reaction of, oh my God, I'm not going to be able to breathe, I'm not going to get up in time, probably lasted a second, because all of a sudden this other sensation of euphoria took over, of, I would say, safety in a way, and complete surrender. So your guests or your listeners who are afraid of death or terrified of it, I always share this story from the standpoint of, it's actually a beautiful experience and probably the most freeing thing that any of us could go through, is the dying experience. But all of the stuff that we hold on to, all the control we tried to have, is literally gone. It's just zero. And that's what I experienced was this utter peacefulness. And I heard myself say, I'm gonna die. And I guess I'm dying. And oh, this is what death feels like. Oh, this is what drowning feels like. This was all very conscious, very mental. I heard my voice in my head. And then all of a sudden, right before it was going to be complete blackness, that's when I felt this kind of snap, if you will. Like, I guess maybe I'm guessing that that soul cord was going as I was realizing, okay, I'm dying, I'm drowning. But I kind of feel like the universe was like, it's not your time because you had this awareness right in the moment, Laurie, of you're safe, you're surrendering. It's beautiful. Dying is gorgeous. And I don't know, this is my story I make up that I got snapped in that moment, sort of as a reward, if you will. It was my 40th birthday. I was 40, and after that, I was living overseas in Kuwait. I'm American, but I had been living overseas for a long time. And I suddenly became obsessed with understanding death and, what happens, if you will. And that's took me back to EFT and getting trained as an EFT therapist and working with people using EFT. And when I work with people using EFT, I believe because we're tapping on these acupressure points, the meridians get activated. So you've got this natural electricity that's flowing through the body. And that's why channeling happens, I believe, much easier in the process of administering EFT with my clients.
Amazing. So I had a couple of questions going back. How did you get out? How did you wake up being rescued by someone? Like, do you
No,
remember?
actually, yeah, I do. It's kind of funny in a way. All of this, so when I heard myself say, "You're gonna die, you're drowning," and then I felt that snap, all of a sudden it was just like the seas parted or something. I was able just to basically pop my head back up, breathe, and walk out. It was bizarre and
On your head?
on my head, I don't remember having a bruise or something like that, but I did have actually like a cut on my lip, and I had a really fat lip, but I did feel, the sensation that I had been hit by the board, but I don't remember that bothering me or giving me lots of problems after. That doesn't stand out in my mind at all. And the funniest thing is, I was on this retreat with, I believe it was 4 other women. None of them, they were all on the shore. None of them had seen what happened. None of them knew. And so that
Wow.
was also a bit, that's when the human side came back of like, oh my goodness, I really could have drowned and nobody would have known. Nobody would have saved me because nobody was watching, nobody saw. So that was quite fascinating. And that's where I also really felt saved, essentially, you know, by the universe or
There's just
whatever.
so many things coming through to ask you because I've interviewed a lot of people who have like very similar experiences, not with drowning, but like kind of like with almost like time standing still when you are the only one aware of what's happening. And
I'm sorry,
there's
it froze, it broke up almost with time. Is that what was the
yeah,
part that you said?
almost like time stopping. Oh, I think you froze too. Hold on. Okay, I think we're back here. All right. So what I was saying is that I've interviewed a lot of different people who have had some of a similar type of experience, different but similar, in which it almost feels like time stands still for you, or that you're experiencing a whole bunch of really mystical, amazing things, and then yet everyone around you is like, no idea what happened, not aware. And it's like, it this only happened to me. Like, what's happening?
Yeah, that's really true. And you know what? I think you're the first person who's probably said that to me. And as you say that to me, I can pop myself right back in that moment
Yeah,
in the ocean. And that is how it felt. It literally felt like nobody else was in the water. And that wasn't true. There were a lot of people in the water that day. And there were a lot of people on shore that day. And it was like time stood still. And this was supposed to be my moment, that there was really something here that was destined or created for me, and that I was supposed to have a big takeaway. And that in order for that to happen, to get my attention, this event had to occur. I had to listen and pay attention and be there and surrender in
surrender.
order,
Yeah.
yeah, in order essentially for this epiphany to happen or whatever it's meant to be called. And that I really do feel, well, I was already on this massive path to healing and spirituality and emotional freedom, that is an extremely defining moment, what I call near death experience, because after that, the people that I started to work with shifted and changed. The way that my work started to happen really shifted and changed. It became, I feel, even deeper. And I really feel like essentially I've been able to talk about or support and guide anybody in any topic, especially along the lines of death or dying or living your soul's mission and your calling. Sometimes people are terrified of living their soul's mission and calling. Sometimes you're like, I didn't sign up for this. But my soul is telling me I'm supposed to do this. You know, some of us have really big, challenging soul callings. But when we work together, they can connect to it rather than be afraid of it. And I feel like having that near death experience has given me the language and the understanding to be able to empower anybody in whatever they're going through, essentially, which has felt very rewarding and it feels like a big honor. And I also feel like having that experience in my background and putting that on the table makes people feel very safe to share anything
Yeah.
that you could potentially be going through.
After that experience where you said everything shifted and the people that came to you and the way that you work with them changed, let me ask you, did you feel any different with the older version of you or the version of you before that moment?
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, I did, because one of the big shifts was this really wanting to understand dying. And I started buying all of these books. One book that really stands out is a book by Annie Kagan, which is about her brother, whom she started to channel after he passed away. It's called The Afterlife of Billy Fingers.
Hmm.
And she didn't have channeling abilities before this, and she was terrified to inform others that she was hearing his voice. And basically, he was helping her write that book, is why she was able to channel him. And this book, her brother Billy, the spirit of Billy, describes for you what it's like when you leave your human body and you enter your light body and you cross over. And it is such a beautiful book. I mean, it almost makes you want to die in a way. It's kind of funny, right?
Don't worry, we'll all get there.
Yeah, it sounds silly in a way, but it really made me understand death or returning home, if you want to call it that,
Mhm.
from that perspective, and help me understand what I went through. And so I feel like my spirituality before that was a lot more superficial. I didn't realize it at the time, but looking back now, I go, oh my gosh, it was very superficial. You know, it was really law of attraction oriented. It was
Yeah.
really manifestation oriented. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but that was a hyper focus for me. And I really took it to the nth degree of, you know, being overly positive. And I think as a result of that, I didn't dive deep enough into my own personal traumas, because everything essentially was glossed over. And I've got to be positive. I've got to think positive things. I've got to say positive things. And that also was laced, if you will, into my practice with my clients that I worked with. So having this near death experience afforded me the ability to be able to take a deep, hard look at what was essentially in my own closet and what hadn't been fully worked through. And that is when I really started working on my childhood and various things that I had encountered and gone through. I had done so. For example, I went to therapy, you know, once I left my parents' home and those sorts of things, but I never found a therapist that really worked for me. And so I was jumping around from all these different therapists and different modalities. So I feel like pre my near death experience, my healing was very disjointed,
Mhm.
And there was too much of a focus on law of attraction manifestation versus, let's get right with yourself and let's make the soul whole first. And so that's what that experience in Bali brought me. And it took me back to emotional freedom techniques, to EFT, and really learn. So becoming an advanced therapist in EFT and really learning what it does, how it works, how it helps you release, and what it does also physically and energetically in the body. And that then coupled with this ability to channel essentially, I really feel like has helped me, not only my clients, but me too, to be able to heal further. Yeah, all of us.
Amazing. So tell us a little bit more about what EFT tapping is for those who don't know or who have never heard of it or like, what is she talking about?
Yeah.
Can you explain more about what it is and how it works and all of that juicy stuff?
Yeah. Is it okay if I give you a little bit of the history of where it
Yeah,
came
of
from?
course. Would love
Yeah.
that.
Feel free to interrupt me if it's too much.
No, no, no. Like I if it's coming through as explaining and it just feels like having a really good understanding of what it is really might help people understand and maybe connect with it and maybe want to give it a try for themselves.
Yeah, I always like to tell the history too, because I often feel like people sometimes do want a little bit of a scientific version.
Yes.
This might help those who have that kind of mind or people who are a little bit more skeptical.
Yeah.
So it's important to know that EFT actually stemmed from another modality, and that modality was created by a man called Dr. Roger Callahan, who himself was a clinical psychologist. And he had been working with clients for a really, really long time. And some of his clients, he noticed they kind of weren't getting anywhere, if you will, particularly clients who had phobias. Phobias can be related to past lives, they can be extreme trauma. There's so many things that phobias can be related to, right? And one of the things that was great about Dr. Callahan was he cared, he really wanted his patients, his clients to get better. And so he thought, how is it that I can shift this? What can I bring to the table? And it sort of was delivered to him. He had a woman that he'd been working with for about 11 years, and he calls her Mary. And she had a phobia of water. And he got her to be able to basically sit in maybe about an inch of water. So not very much, but that was all at that point they were able to do. So one day she called him and she said, Dr. Kellyanne, my phobia is at the highest of heights. It's never been this high before. And he noticed one thing that she said, which she had never said before, which was that her stomach was nauseous. So he had been studying kinesiology. He wanted to learn more about the body, that body-mind connection, in an effort to hopefully get a lot of these clients who were kind of stuck over the hump. And when he heard her say, my stomach is nauseous, he knew the meridian point was under the eye for the stomach. So he said, hey, Mary, keep talking, but while you're talking, tap under the eye. And so she did. And instantaneously, she says, oh my gosh, Dr. Callahan, I'm not terrified of water anymore. It's like my phobia of water is gone. My phobia of water is gone. And she said, to prove it, I want to come over to your house, because she knew at his home office he had a swimming pool. And she says, I'm going to jump in your pool. So she comes
Wow.
over. Yeah. And literally just like that, by honoring the sensation in the body, by addressing the energetic that was in the body, and having the somatic experience and doing the physical tapping under the eye, she was able to free that emotion that had been stored in her organs for so long. So right then and there is when Dr. Roger Callahan starts what he calls thought field therapy, which essentially is the beginnings of EFT, which we'll talk about in a moment. But it is this tapping technique while simultaneously talking. So basically, bringing in cognitive behavioral therapy with tapping on the various acupressure points that we have in our body. So Fast forward in time a little bit, another man by the name of Gary Craig had learned about his work and was fascinated by thought field therapy and thought that it was really, really profound. Gary, by trade, he had studied engineering at Stanford and later on became an NLP, a master in NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. So when he starts to study thought field therapy with Dr. Callahan, he says, this is great and it works, but it's also a little bit complicated or it's a little bit confusing. And the reason for that was because with thought field therapy, there's all these different combinations. So a simple example might be you do one tapping combination for an addiction to chocolate. You do another tapping combination for a phobia and so on. And Gary said, geez, I'm just a normal person. I'm not a therapist. How will I remember all of these different combinations? And his engineering brain kicked in and he thought, there's got to be a way that I can come up with one tapping combination that hits up all of the meridians and is easy to remember and also offers a tapping script, language that people can say every single time to basically bridge the right brain and the left brain, and to also address the sabotaging behavior while simultaneously inviting in the possibility of the new behavior that you want to have. And that became EFT, which stands for Emotional Freedom Techniques.
I had never heard that story. That's fascinating, and I love it that you're sharing it.
You probably, if here's the little bit of a challenge with EFT. It's become quite trendy, and a lot of people just follow along on videos, but they're also oftentimes offering EFT as a service without having been officially trained. And therefore don't know the history or the background. And also people who do that, it's actually really dangerous. Because those of us who are trained as EFT therapists, we know how to deal with what we call ab reactions, which could be suddenly a person who's tapping with me realizes a trauma or a trauma just comes out. They didn't know they had the trauma, or suddenly they remember the trauma, and we're highly trained on how to deal with that. So a lot of people who, say, I offer EFT as a service, but they're not officially trained in it, more than likely don't know that story and don't know the history of where EFT came from. Gary Craig, who brought us EFT, he's still alive. I see him every Sunday and Wednesday because he has a membership, and he still offers training, and he's like 84 or 86 or something. He's amazing. He's in California, and he's a genius, and he's a real loving heart. He's a very highly spiritual man. So that's EFT. And the tapping part is a technique of EFT. So EFT stands for Emotional Freedom Techniques, and tapping is an active part of it, but there are also other techniques that we're trained in. So you will hear people refer to EFT as tapping or tapping therapy, but there are many other techniques that make up EFT.
Amazing. Yeah, I have done EFT through a video where the practitioner was going through the script, because it was a script, and tapping in other places, and I didn't feel connected at all. I feel because I was so having to pay attention to what to say, while where do I tap? And so, so it just didn't feel like I could do it through that. But there's so many, just like you said, like videos out there of repeating these things. And I spoke with another EFT tapping person a couple of weeks ago, and she was talking about your own experience. And I'm like, oh, well, that makes much more sense than reading a script that is just generic to the masses. Right. So,
And
I mean,
Valeria, the rapport and the connection that you have with the practitioner is also very crucial, because depending on what your topic is, it obviously can feel very intimate or very delicate. And so you need to know, I feel safe with this practitioner. Yes. I feel like they're going to be able to hold me and witness me and truly guide me. And with the practitioner, our job is to just have you follow along and relax and tap, or if that practitioner is in person with you, that they're tapping on you.
Oh, okay.
EFT can be done in person. When EFT was first initially being taught by Gary Craig, it was always done in person.
And
So
I'm sorry to interrupt. when it's done on person, and the practitioner's tapping on you, I didn't even know that this was possible. Is the person still speaking or is the practitioner speaking?
Both.
Okay.
So the practitioner will hold your hand, and we always in person keep that connection. We always hold one hand, and I will then tap on the side of your hand, for example. And we start with that setup statement, that script that you know that you tried. Even though I have this problem, I deeply and completely love, honor, and accept myself. And they will say it. So I'll say it, and then they repeat it.
Hmm.
And then I go through the tapping points on their body, and we talk about whatever this problem is or this emotion, and then say, this emotion, this emotion, this emotion, or which could be this sadness, this heartbreak, this disappointment, for
Hmm.
example. And I'll say it first, and then they're repeating it. Yeah, in person or online, however
Uh-huh,
we.
uh-huh. Okay, so now let's talk about your intuition and your channeling. Like, is this coming through when you are working with a client and then are you channeling what would be the best things for that person to say, or
Yeah.
is that
So
what's
it's really interesting because sometimes it'll be a question, or
uh-huh.
sometimes it will be, I'll see things. I'll just see imagery. And I usually I don't even bring up the channeling when I'm working with a client. It will just happen, and I'll just offer it, and they can take it or leave it. They don't have to accept anything that I say, but it has been really powerful whenever I do. Sometimes I'll see their story, or I'll see various images that are being shared, or I'll smell something. I had one instance as an example. I was working with a client that I've been working with for a while, and we were in the middle of tapping, and from nowhere I just saw all these cornfields, just rows and rows and rows of cornfields. And so I offered it. I said, listen, we're not talking about corn, I know. But I just need to share with you, I am seeing cornfields like crazy. And she kind of starts to giggle, because at first she's like, what? Like, where's this coming from? But she completely related to the image. And so she says to me, wow, this is really crazy. First of all, the state that I'm from is full of cornfields, and I was raised around cornfields. And she said, I've written a book that I have been wanting to send to a publisher to publish, but I haven't. She said she had even put it inside the FedEx envelope, and she hadn't sent it. And she says the book has cornfields, scenes with cornfields in it. And she said, I kind of feel like right now I'm being guided or directed to follow through and finish up and put that FedEx package, in the box, and get it off, which she did after that session. So that's kind of a simple example, but we're literally in the middle of tapping. And so what's happening is she's an online client. So I'm tapping on my body while she's tapping on her own body. And at the same time that she's freeing up her own emotions through emotional freedom techniques, I'm also having releases for the clients as well. As practitioners, we're looking for releases. We're looking for physical and emotional releases, like swallowing, crying, burping, passing gas, hysterically laughing, coughing, sneezing, excessive swallowing, for example. Those are certain things that I'm looking for. And I'll often have releases for the client. But at the same time, I feel like because my meridians are so activated and I'm so connected to that client, then the channeling steps up, if you will, or
Hmm.
steps in. I'm also trained in human design, and I really customize and personalize each and every single session that I do of EFT according to each person's human design energy type. And I'm a projector. So I'm a 6-3 self-projected projector. I'm off the roof. For those who know about human design, I'm in my stage 3. And projectors are known to have these abilities, if you will, because we're here to see the other. We're here to
Yes.
see the other as the other wants to be seen,
I'm
and
a
to.
projector too.
I knew it. 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 Valeria, you didn't tell me that, but I freaking knew it. What's your profile?
I have no idea.
Oh, yeah, we'll have to
Okay.
run.
I have been told, and like astrology and human design, it fascinates me. I love it. I feel it really does speak like the blueprint of a person. And it doesn't matter how many times somebody has explained it or giving it to me, it's in the moment and then it's like, but I love it.
I do too. I love knowing that you're a projector, and it makes sense that you're doing what you're doing the work type of work that you're doing, seeing the other. So you get it. And I really feel like that is also a piece of this with respect to channeling is pretty much every projector I've ever met has some form of psychic ability, mediumship, you know, high intuition, which completely makes sense for our energy because we are here to
Yeah.
truly see the other person, all their potential, all their abilities. And also, we're here to be a guide. So, we're really here to guide them to live the essence of them. So, I feel like with that near death experience and then the work that I do, it just keeps getting even more streamlined, if you will, with intuitive abilities. And I also feel like it didn't leave me at the time when I had that near death experience. No, it did actually. That is also when human design came into my life because I'm 10 years now, almost 10 years now into human design, and I'm 50 now. So I had that near death experience at 40. So that's also when human design came, and I was
Wow.
able to go through my own personal deconditioning process, which included EFT, and really shed all that conditioning that was blocking my intuition at the highest level before.
Oh, I love that you said that.
Right?
Yes. So let me ask you, once you did that huge 180 and began going down this path, you were studying while you were still working, and then you decided to leave. How did your family, friends take that?
Yeah. Great question. So, so with respect to family, at first, my mom specifically was like, "What are you doing? You're going to leave. You have a federal job with a federal pension and great benefits and insurance and so on." And I had a townhouse that I bought that I lived in alone that I owned. And she's like, "How are you going to pay your mortgage?" And so on and so forth. And I swear to you, I don't know where the words came from. I feel like this was just like the universe downloading, like
First
out in
download.
my mouth. Yeah. And I said, my response was, "Don't you feel you've equipped me as a parent with the ability to do this? Don't you trust the parenting that you did with me
That's
to,"
profound.
right? And I swear to God, like, I remember after that conversation leaving my mom and going, "What? Where? How'd you say that? How'd you come up with that? Where did it even come from?" And I stunned her. I stunned myself, but I stunned her. Like she was gobsmacked. She had no response for me. I mean, because basically I wasn't trying to be a jerk, but I put it back on her. Like, "Hey, you essentially done a great job of parenting me," is really what I was saying without
Yeah.
saying in that moment.
It's
And
almost it's almost like you believed in the way she brought you up and taught you more than she did.
yeah, yeah, 100%. I
Wow.
don't remember what my father said, because that conversation with her stood out so much more so. When it came to colleagues who were also my friends at federal probation, really so many of them lined up at my office, especially like my final week there, saying, "You're really doing this. Like, I can't believe you're really doing this. I can't believe you're giving up your career. I can't believe you're giving all this up. You're really an inspiration." And I said, "Thank you. And at the same time, you can do this too. I'm no different than you. I'm just making a choice. I'm just choosing to sit in choice and have faith and take this chance. Why don't you join me?" I really asked them, why don't you do it too? Because you're saying this to me because clearly you're not happy and you'd like to go as well. And they didn't, they stayed, they were nervous. They didn't have enough trust. And some of them had children and so on and so forth. I didn't. And sadly, very sadly, a lot of them have died and died way too young. And most of it was, physical manifestation stuff. Most of it was heart attacks or heart disease or diabetes and a heart attack related to the diabetes. And to me, anything that's heart related, you're brokenhearted in your life, essentially. You're not perhaps feeling like you're following your heart's song. And
Mm,
as a result, it just got too much. And a lot of them died, 39, 48, 50.
that's so
And
young.
so, yeah, very, very young and tragically.
I've seen this a lot. I used to be a teacher. I taught for 15 years and I left. And I mean, everybody who's a teacher is leaving now anyway, but that's a different story. But I do see that with other people, colleagues, like, oh no, I'm invested. I have tenure. I've been here 20 years. Like, I'm not
Yes.
starting over. I have a pension and all of these fears
Yeah.
of I don't want to give up this sure thing as much as my heart is broken or as much as I'm not no longer enjoying this,
Yeah.
to take a chance because I might lose it. And it feels like that fear of the unknown of what am I going to do? How am I going to do it really keeps people back.
Yeah, and I love that you said that about the fear of the unknown because I feel like people oftentimes put the focus on the fear of the unknown instead of focusing on the known, which is you. So, what do you know about yourself? What have you already done? Who are you? Who do you want to be? What skill sets do you have? What education do you have? What resources do you have? If you start focusing on those knowns, then that fear of the unknown gets smaller and smaller. And also the fear of the unknown gets informed. It gets informed by the known, what you do know. And I really feel like that's a powerful piece when we start looking at where we're at choice and deciding what we're going to choose to focus on. And that was my case. I had gone through this two really great coaching programs up to that point before I resigned from my position as an officer in 2006. And here's the thing, and I think this is important for all of us to remember and listen to, is keep using the tools. Oftentimes people are
Yes.
so harped on, like, they're harping on, I have to have instant gratification. And it doesn't go like that. It's like you're given a tool and you got to keep using it. You got to keep putting it into practice. And so for me, I really took those tools that I learned in my programs as a practitioner and I applied them every day, literally every day, multiple times per day. And what that did for me was it conditioned me in confidence. And it
Mm.
conditioned me in hearing my soul instead of turning the volume down on it, because that's what I had done. I had turned the volume down on my soul for the almost 10 years I had been an officer. I knew there were other things I wanted to explore and experience. And just like everybody else, I kept saying, well, I don't know, maybe I won't be able to pay my mortgage, or I won't be able to do this, or I won't be able to do that. I was in that fear of the unknown place. But going through those programs taught me how to feel in a different way, how to think in a different way. It was far more resourced conditioning and programming than what I had ever had before when I was growing up, either from my teachers or my family, my parents, etc. And so I really do think that we are a product of our environment. And when you start changing the environment that you're in and the people that are in those environments are like-minded people, and they are focused on their growth and their transformation and following their heart, it really is going to condition and program you to do the same if that's what you're calling in. And that is what I was calling in. I was done. I was tired. I was sick of hearing myself. I was complaining all the time as a projector. I was really, really bitter before I left my career, really bitter. And I was also being conditioned around other officers who were equally as bitter. They were angry, frustrated, tired, depleted. And I kept taking in and absorbing that energy as a projector. So then I became hyper focused on negativity and bitterness until I made that choice to take those tools on, and they worked. They worked because I kept using them and I kept applying what I was
That,
being trained.
I'm so glad you're bringing that out because in my own practice, I have seen the difference. And I always tell anyone who wants to come and work with me at any point, I always tell them, I'm going to give you the tools. I'm going to give you homework. It's up to you how
Yes.
often you do it. If you do it every day, you can be here in
Yep.
this many weeks. If you do
Yep.
it once a week, you're going to get there anyway, but it's going to take you much longer.
Yeah, you're right.
And it
Yeah,
does make a difference how often, when I did
yes.
my own healing too, when I was working with someone, I was also doing it every single day.
Yeah,
And this is why and how you really move quickly,
yeah.
because it's like you don't give yourself, your all self or your subconscious time to revert to the old you because you're constantly working on it,
Or
constantly
even
telling
if the
it.
old you does rear its head with its patterns, you have the tools to
Yeah,
deal with the subconscious. You do have the tools to deal with those parts of you and to acknowledge them and greet them, and instead of ignore them or shame them or blame them, say, okay, hey, here's my 15-year-old part. Here's this 15-year-old self, and this is what she's calling for. This is what he needs. This is what they want from me. And to really be able to work with it and heal it and help it feel whole. So that way, yeah, now you can get to the next level. So I feel like it works in both ways in that regard when you're using your tools for sure.
yeah, yeah, for sure. Um, so glad that you brought that up. There was something else I wanted to ask you about what you were saying. Um, Now it's leaving me my head. It's right up there. Hello.
It'll come back.
Yeah, it'll come back. Okay, so in your practice, when do you want to talk a little bit more about the human design? Because that's also a big part of what you do, as you
Yeah,
mentioned before, and it really fascinates me. So, and you also mentioned that before you start working with someone new, that you do a full chart and everything, like
yeah.
to get to know them energetically, I guess, before.
I do. So I run their chart, and if they don't have any exposure to human design, then I'm doing a full reading with them to expose them to who they are on an energetic and soul blueprint level, the way that human design operates. We have 5 different design types. So there's the manifester, there's the manifesting generator, the projector, and the reflector. And each of these design types has a strategy to follow in order for them to live their highest self. And they therefore also have an authority that they're here to honor and follow regarding taking big decisions in life. You know, that decision could be related to relationships, education, the work that you do. Do I take this trip? Do I follow through with this person that I'm meeting right now, for example? What is taught in human design is that we are all conditioned. And most of the time, we're conditioned by people who were conditioned themselves, of course, right? And they're conditioned against living their honest self, essentially. And so, with that conditioning, we lose connection to the essence of who we are. So, in the human design system, it's said that you go through a 7-year deconditioning process by following your strategy and authority, understanding what your specific motivation is in human design, understanding your environment, your ideal environment where your body is going to thrive. So that way you can take the best decisions that are most empowering and successful for you. And that way you can live what's called your signature. So manifestors are here to experience peace, for example, that's their signature. Manifesting generators are here to experience peaceful satisfaction, and that's their signature. Your signature and my signature as projectors is success, for example. So the more that we're living in our human design environment, or being at least in our human design environment and following our strategy and authority according to our energy type, then the closer we're living the essence of ourselves. Each one of us also has what's called an incarnation cross, a cross we're here to bear, if you will, or a cross we're here to share.
Mhm.
Mine, for example, is the left angle cross of defiance. So I'm literally here to defy the status quo and step out of line and walk to the beat of a different drum. And when I do that, I'm modeling the way by showing people they're safe to express who they are, to live their highest form of self-expression. That's why I'm here on this planet, for example. And when I learned that specific is called your incarnation cross. It's essentially like your life theme, your purpose in life, why you're here. When I learned about my incarnation cross, when I first started studying and getting trained in human design, I was like, oh my gosh, this makes so much sense. This is me. I've been defying everything and defying the norms and bucking the systems and foregoing the status quo. And I felt seen really for the first time. And it felt like, oh my gosh, this makes sense why I am this way. And it took a lot of the trigger or the charge or the pain out of being defiant, if you will. Now I feel like, yay, I'm defiant. I'm delightfully defiant rather than cursing myself for wanting to do things differently than what the majority of society would do.
I love
So,
that. It's like you're
yeah,
taking, because so many of us are aware of something that we have that does not fit society, and we feel that there's something wrong with us. We make
yeah,
ourselves small. My son, for example, he's super sensitive, and I always tell him that's his superpower, but I like to lean into it because there's something there for him. Like
yeah,
that's what he's good at, right? Like showing
yeah,
people that showing emotion, it's fine and it's okay
yeah.
and it's part of you. But yeah, like it almost gives you permission to be who you're supposed to be.
100%. That is that. Woo, ding, ding, ding. That's exactly how I felt when I first read my chart and I got my first reading from my first human design coach. And then after that, I went and got a bunch of other readings because I was like, I want more. And then, of course, I went to school for human design. So then I was really understanding on this much deeper level. And I was like, this is what this system is. It is literally permission to be 100% yourself. And then it tells you the way to do it.
Mm.
But here's where I feel there is a gap, if you will. It tells you what to do, but it doesn't really show you how to live out your strategy and your authority, for example. It doesn't really show you the steps to take in order to live yourself in human design. And that's where I feel EFT comes in. So human design says, okay, it takes 7 years for you to essentially live your true self. But how do you get there? And to me, EFT is the way. The script that we use in EFT, what I do is,
I
so
love how you're bringing that together.
yeah, we can even do it together if you want. So as a
Yeah,
project,
sure.
you want to tap a little bit?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. So
Amazing.
start tapping at the side of the hand. And I realize that some people will be listening. So I'll just guide through the tapping points. So the side of the hand is often called the karate chop point or that
Uh-huh.
fleshy side of your hand.
And let me just share with you that every time I do this, like it's really tender on my side. Like I
Oh,
don't
that's,
want to do it.
I love that you're saying that. So an alternative, thank you for sharing that, is you can just touch and hold if you want. Just touch
Okay.
that point. You can massage it if you want. And if
Okay.
that's still is tender, instead, the other point is on your chest. So this is an alternative to that. Does that feel
Okay.
tender?
Yeah, but not as much. Like for some reason, like the side of my hand always feels like
More
pins
tender.
on needles, like
Mm,
stabbing. I was gonna
yeah.
ask you, like, does that mean that I have some blocks there?
It could be that there's stagnation there, and it could be that you're being, called to
Uh-huh.
learn that part. Yeah.
Okay.
Then we'll start instead on our chest. So
Okay.
those who can't see us, we're tapping just a little bit under the collarbone, about like a centimeter down, a little bit of like a centimeter over on the chest. Kind of, you can think Tarzan.
Yeah.
All right. And so we're going to do a setup statement, which always starts with even though. And we're going to do kind of a generic, if you will,
Yeah.
setup areas. So we're going to do it for projectors where we feel bitterness. That's our not self theme. Our self theme is success. That's our signature. So we know we're in ourself when we feel successful. So how I do this is the script goes, even though I have this problem, let's say I invite in the possibility of. So I fill in the language from human design there. So what we're going to do is you're going to repeat after me while tapping, in this case, on the chest. You're going to say,
Okay.
even though
Even though
I feel a little bit bitter,
I feel a little bit bitter,
I invite in the possibility of
I invite the possibility of
feeling successful.
feeling successful.
Even though there's some bitterness here,
Even though there's some bitterness here,
I invite in the possibility of feeling successful.
I invite in the possibility of feeling successful.
Let's call in what makes you feel bitter. Is there
Let's
anything?
call in.
What would
Oh,
make you feel bitter? Sorry.
ooh, judgment from others.
Mhm. And if you're feeling judged, my guess is you're not feeling seen.
Yeah.
Truly seen? Okay. So
Hmm.
is it okay? This is just me asking. Is it okay if we say even though I don't feel seen, or even when I don't feel seen? Is that all right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Let's say that. Even when I don't truly feel seen,
Even when I don't truly feel seen,
I invite in the possibility of
I invite in the possibility of
people really being able to see me.
people really being able to see me.
All right. So that is the setup statement. We say that
Hmm.
3 times. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to do it. You don't have to do the setup statement. Sometimes we just dive right into the tapping points. But when I'm showing or teaching human design or EFT, excuse me, I like to do the setup statement because I feel it's really powerful. So
Okay.
then what we're going to do is we're going to go through the tapping points. You're going to join me at the top of the head and we're going to say this bitterness.
This bitterness,
Inside the eyebrows, this bitterness.
this bitterness
Side of the eyes. Where now, I'm going to ask you, where do you feel bitterness in your body when you notice it?
in my throat.
Ooh. This bitterness in my throat.
This bitterness in my throat.
Under the eyes, this bitterness in my throat.
This bitterness in my throat.
All right, Valeria, join me under the nose. And when you feel it in your throat, what does it feel like, that bitterness?
Oh, it feels like a lump. It's like literally feeling like it's closing up.
You're feeling it right
Yeah,
now?
yeah.
Isn't that amazing? Because we didn't talk about anything really, like about the bitterness, but isn't that powerful? Look
And
at
I had
that.
no idea I had bitterness.
Yeah, join me on the chin and tap on the chin. This bitterness in my throat.
This bitterness in my throat.
I'm going to go to the chest, tapping on the chest. It feels like a lump.
It feels like a lump.
Now we're going to tap under the arm, and it's like it's closing up.
And it's like it's closing up.
Top of the head, my bitter throat.
My bitter throat.
Inside the eyebrows, it's like a lump.
It's like a lump.
Side of the eyes, like my throat is closing up.
It's like my throat is closing up.
Under the eyes, when I tune in to my bitterness.
When I tune into my bitterness.
Under the nose. Okay, now I just want you to tune back into that lump. How is it now? What do you notice?
It actually feels smaller, not
Mm,
completely blocking my throat.
incredible. Isn't that
It really
amazing?
is. This is amazing.
Yeah, yeah. On the
I hope
chin.
everybody's doing this.
Yeah, I hope everybody's following along and tapping along too. Because when we acknowledge the felt sensation, the energy that happens in the body when we experience our not self themes like bitterness or anger or frustration or disappointment, it's like the energy is an informant, it's a messenger. And it's just saying, hey, please notice me, address this, come back into the body, notice what this event or this incident or this situation or this person is making you feel. And it does come up as a sensation in a specific place in the body. So let's come now to the chest, tapping on the chest. So my guess, and you just tell me if this feels true for you or not, is when you don't feel seen, you feel judged and not truly recognized. It's like there's a loss of words, or you feel like you can't speak up.
Yeah, like I can speak my truth.
Yeah, like you're not safe to speak your truth,
I'm not,
huh?
yes, like I'm not safe to speak my truth for judgment.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I just want to draw your attention back to the throat right now.
Okay.
And that, what do you feel in the
And
throat?
now it's blowing up again.
It's increasing. The
Yeah.
sensation is increasing. Okay.
It's almost like this balloon.
Mm. Does the balloon have a color?
It's blue,
Mm.
light blue.
Mhm. And the balloon, if you were to give me the size of it, like is it bigger than the palm of your hand, smaller than the palm of your
No,
hand?
it's about
Okay.
your, yeah, like holding a little something in your hand, like a fist.
Mm, 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 mm. And
Mm.
as you've been describing that for me, when you tune back into the energy in the throat, how's it feel now?
Yeah, now it's deflating. Oh my gosh, this is so crazy.
It's deflating, and I love that you use the word deflating. Brilliant. Really, really.
This is deflating. Because I literally am seeing the balloon in there.
Yeah,
Deflating.
yeah, under the arm. Okay, so you're seeing the balloon. I really like that you're seeing the balloon. Okay, so
I'm very visual.
yeah, okay, great. So would you be able then, or would you be willing to just kind of imagine this little light balloon that is deflating in front of your eyes, like
Mhm.
kind of put it out there, like even in a movie screen if you wanted to.
Okay.
Yeah. And what would you like to do with the balloon?
I would like to throw it away.
Said have it fly far away. Okay. Yeah.
I like to pull it out and throw it away.
Let's do that. You can do that. Absolutely. Yeah. And before we do that, is there anything that the balloon might want to say?
Oh, it's actually saying thank you
Hmm.
for noticing me.
Oh, look at you.
Yeah.
Okay. Hmm. Oh, lovely. Oh, thank you, balloon. We do know you. Yeah, we're paying attention. Yeah. Oh, how are you feeling now?
I feel emotional.
Yeah, I see some tears, but they look happy tears because I'm seeing
Yeah.
smile. Okay, okay. Yeah. All
It's
right.
almost like I can place where these emotions are coming from. It's weird.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and that's
Wow.
okay. That's okay. That's all right. We're just freeing them and honoring them today. And if I were to continue working with you, we would go there. We would go, where's the first time you felt this emotion? When's the first time the balloon showed up? We would go there, but we're not going to go there today. We'll just
Okay.
honor for
Yeah.
now. And then join me back at the
Amazing.
top of the head. And we'll just say, I'm honoring this balloon today,
I'm honoring this balloon today,
giving it a voice,
giving it a voice,
recognizing and seeing it,
recognizing and seeing it,
recognizing and seeing myself.
recognizing and seeing myself.
I'm going to have you fill in, I choose, and then you
Okay.
fill in the blank. What would you like to choose?
Oh, I choose love and
Hmm.
light.
Ooh, choose love and light. All right. All right. Go ahead and
Yay.
shoot your arms out there. And thank you so much for continuing
Whoa!
to do that with me. Yeah.
Thank you. Oh my gosh. I was not expecting anything like this at all. It's incredible the feeling that you get. Like you can literally feel something within your body. You can feel it moving in and out. And
Yeah.
it really feel like it makes such a huge difference to have a practitioner who's actually knows what they're doing, who's trained on guiding the person on what to do, what to say, what to feel, like what to pay attention to, as compared to doing this type of work on your own with a video from YouTube or something where things are not explained, where it's not guided towards you, where the person cannot hold space for what's coming up for you,
Yeah. And
right?
really personalize it and really customize it.
Yeah.
I think that tailor make each session to what you're experiencing and what you're going through. And also really being able to recognize certain signs, certain words that you use. You know, you use that word balloon and to really go, okay, this means something to her, whether she realizes it or not, whether it's subconscious or it's conscious, it's irrelevant, doesn't matter. We know the balloon is relevant. So let's keep talking about that. And if I were to continue in that session with you, I would then continue to bring you back to that success feeling,
Mm.
toggling between bitterness and success as a projector, being able to recognize where do you feel the bitterness in your body? Where do you feel the success frequency in your body? And getting you to feel safe to release the bitterness and to heal it and to work with it and acknowledge it, while at the same time increasing the success frequency that is your signature as a projector. So today what we did was, we freed up more energy. We released a lot of that bitterness through that balloon, which of course invites in more of your success signature as a projector. So that's how I pair EFT and combine EFT and human design together, which to me makes me feel like I can really tailor make very highly customized sessions according to your energetic blueprint. And that's where you're going to have the biggest results. That's where it's going to have the biggest impact.
Amazing. It's just I'm so glad that you brought this out and thank you. Thank you for doing this right here so that people can see what it feels like. And also I found it so incredibly interesting that you're like, we're just gonna go with something general like bitterness.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I've done so much work on myself and I'm constantly doing it. But if I was to tune in, like, well, what do I need to release today? I don't feel bitterness would have been a thing that I
Right.
would have chosen.
Yeah.
Right? And then to see that, I'm like, okay, well, let's go with that. And then like to feel all these emotions coming, I'm like, wow, I was holding that. Like
Yeah.
incredible.
I love that you said that because obviously this was impromptu. We had no
Yeah.
idea that this was
Uh-huh.
going to happen. So then you get to have the real experience, and so do your listeners. And that's a really important piece that you said. I didn't know I was holding that.
Yes.
Most of us don't. Most of us are just trained to either ignore our emotions, or we're told our emotions are not correct. They're bad. Don't cry, don't do this, don't say that. And so then we just keep pushing them down and pushing them down. But they got to go somewhere. They are energy. Emotions are energy. So they don't go away. They keep building up and building up. And what they do is they get stuck in your organs, and which are also your human design centers. So they disrupt your energy. They create an emotional disrupt. And the more that we have an emotional disturbance in the body, it actually does impact our belief systems, which then impacts our behavior. And as a result, we don't necessarily take the most inspired actions, or the most or operate from the most empowered belief system. And it's so hidden from us, right? They're hidden beliefs. Just like you said, I didn't know I was holding that. And that's like what I feel is really powerful about my combining human design and EFT, because projectors have bitterness and we don't know it until we bring it into the consciousness and we go, oh my God, yeah, we do. I remember when I was first being exposed to human design, I was like, oh, I am bitter. Oh, I really am. And manifestors, for example, have anger. That's their not self theme. Manifesting generators have impatience, dissatisfaction, and frustration. And if you talk to each of these energy types and you bring up these words, you essentially bring up these emotions, they'll
Yeah.
go, oh my God, yeah. Once you bring them into awareness. And on the flip side, when you bring each of these energy, these design types into awareness around their signature and their highest self's emotion, as projectors, for example, we say success. Success is what is built into us. It is what we're here to have. It's our authority, our birthright, if you will. It's like we are meant to be successful. That's our signature. And manifestors are here to have peace and freedom. And you mention these words, these energetics, these emotions, these dynamics. It resonates on an energetic level. Our body recognizes this language. And EFT is all about being in the body, freeing up these emotions so that way you can have emotional freedom and your ideal version of success and fulfillment. So that's why, to me, combining these two modalities is the most powerful thing anybody can do to decondition themselves and recondition themselves into living their design and their highest form, living their soul's calling. Because we
I
hear these
love
words
it.
and we go, oh my God, yeah, 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 without realizing.
Yeah, you know what else I feel this does? Is it allows us to take responsibility for what we are doing or we're holding or we're healing, because so often when we're first going down the path of healing, it's all about pointing that finger outwards and putting it like, oh, the anger's coming because of that person, as opposed to recognizing, oh, actually, I'm the one holding the anger,
Yeah.
right? Or whatever emotion it is. So if it gives you that awareness of like, oh, it's me, or I get to heal this, I get to
Yeah.
face it, and I get to release it. And yeah, so
Yeah, I love that. I love that you said that. And I love that you use that phrase, get to. That's one of my favorite phrases, because it's such a different energetic dynamic than have to, right? It's like,
oh
okay,
yeah.
I realize that this is here. I realize, for example, as a projector, I'm bitter. Or I realize as a generator, I'm frustrated. And I get to change that. And to me, the how is understanding your human design and tapping, using EFT, using it regularly, making it a practice, making it a ritual, making it a routine, something that you are going to systematically use. I always recommend you start with a practitioner. And if you're working with a trained practitioner, that trained practitioner is going to recommend that you do self-tapping at home. So
Mm.
you get into the practice of it, and that you also use it as a tool that you can rely on and resort to in moments of crisis or turbulence, or just even fear or worry or anxiety. You don't have to know it perfectly, but you just get yourself into the space of responding better, if you will, rather than trauma reacting and falling prey to your old patterns. So I tap with my clients, but I also am always encouraging them to keep it up on their own too, in between our sessions. And the more that you do that, you're tackling that how. You're tackling that how of how do I heal? How do I
Mm-hmm.
transform? How do I live the true me? You're doing it every single time you tap, in my opinion.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
tap by myself, huh? I mean, I'm tapping every day with myself. I also have other trained therapists. We do swaps. So regularly, I am meeting with my fellow EFT therapist, and she's meeting with me, and we are tapping for each other, with each other, to keep up on our own healing as well as integration, our maintenance and sustaining the work that we're
I was going to
doing.
ask you that once somebody has, let's say, a full session with you, um, and then let's say they have another one coming up, I don't know, is it a week or 2 weeks? I don't know. Um, does the integration continue to release throughout the week? Or
Yeah,
is
that's
it
a
just in
great
that?
That's a great question. You are actually the only person who's asked me that. Yes, it does. So oftentimes what we tell clients when we're doing EFT with them is you're going to feel something more than likely today. And even if you didn't feel something in the session, you're probably going to feel something tomorrow or the next day or a week later. Sometimes you have these big ahas or these breakthroughs, these epiphanies, sometimes even a month later after you've had a session. Yep. So the answer is yes.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. Um, I have no words. I feel so complete.
Oh, yay. Oh my gosh, that's the best word ever. I love that word, Valeria. Yay. I'm grateful that you have that you're able to feel that.
Yeah, amazing. So tell us, Laurie, how can people get in touch with you?
Yeah, well, I'm on Instagram. So I'm Life Coach Laurie at Instagram. My name is spelled Laurie. Actually, my handle is Life Coach Laurie at everything. So Pinterest, Facebook, Instagram, Life Coach Laurie. And my website is lifecoachlaurie.com.
Amazing. And I'm going to put all that information in the notes under this show. So you can just, if you're driving or if you didn't get a chance to do that, just look on the notes under so you can get in touch with Laurie. This has been amazing. Thank you so much for your energy, for what you do in the world. I love your energy of how you went from that corporate, really three-dimensional, constrictive
Yeah.
type of, making a living to what you're doing now.
Thank you so much. I feel a lot freer and yeah, more at ease, I'd say. Yeah.
Yeah, and you look happy.
I I feel like it as well. I feel like I was losing my radiance in that world, and it taught me a lot, and I was meant to be there when I was. And I also feel grateful that I woke up, the spell was dispelled, if you will, and have been able to live this way and do this work. Um, because I feel softer, I'd say.
Yes.
Yeah.
Ooh, I'm glad you mentioned that because, yeah, that whole thing about going into your passion, into what you're meant to be or do, is all about tuning into your feminine,
Yeah.
which we all have, males and females, and going along with that flow of your femininity to allow yourself to be.
Yeah, so important. And I was really calling out for that. I really needed that. I was, well, doing officer work. I feel like I was more in a masculine.
I cannot see you being an officer in this energy that I see right now.
I'm embracing and taking in softness. So thank you.
Well, you're welcome. Before you go, is there anything that we didn't touch in or that you would like to share or tell the audience before you go?
Oh, yeah, sure. So there are two things. One, if anybody would like to do a complimentary discovery call where we explore EFT and human design together, I always offer a 30-minute complimentary session, which they can book at my at my Instagram or at my website, completely free, no obligation, so long as they've never worked with me before. So that's at lifecoachlaurie.com where they can book that discovery call. And then the second thing is, if you're interested in group EFT tapping, I offer that every single month on the first Monday of every month, which is at 10 a.m. Eastern. So we get on Zoom and we all tap together on the first Monday of every month. So that might be something that others might like to explore, where instead of just doing one-on-one, they experience it in a group setting, which is equally as powerful. Very, very different experience, but it really, really digs deep and works really well.
Oh, that sounds
Yeah.
very juicy.
I love that word.
Yeah, well, thank you. Thank you so much for those beautiful gifts that you offer everybody. And I hope people will take advantage of that and go and look into it and at least try it. If you're all the way up to here at the end of this podcast, then you're probably interested and you're probably curious even. So at least take that chance because I'm telling you, I mean, you saw it here. I was surprised to see what came out of me. Just completely so powerful, such powerful way of releasing energy. Thank you.
And thank you, Valeria, for doing what you do and offering this platform for us to share these tools and experiences with others. Thank you for shining your light. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Well, guys, what an aha moment. What an amazing moment here. If you love Laurie's energy as much as I did, I encourage you to get in touch with her and definitely take a part of those freebies that she has available. If you like this podcast and the information that you're seeing here, I'm going to ask you to please like, subscribe, leave a comment. All of those are things that are helping this podcast be seen so that more people can find the information. With that, I love you and I will see you next time. Bye bye.